What's up, Internet? I'm George Edward, and in today's video, we're going to be decoding Lightroom profiles so you can get a peek under the hood and figure out what changes are actually taking place when you apply that profile. Lightroom profiles are a great tool. They're something that a lot of photographers use, especially early photographers, in order to kind of establish what their own kind of artistic vision looks like and to replicate the work of the photographers that they might want their work to someday resemble. If you're anything like me, you might be looking to maintain ownership over your artistic process. Using a Lightroom profile is extremely helpful, but it's not the best if you can't, as the artist, say what changes are being made onto your image. So I've often found myself a little bit conflicted because there's a Lightroom profile by Kyle McDougall that I use all of the time. I think it's fantastic. It gives me a baseline correction that I then use to go in and kind of make all my final tweaks on top of, and it really sets my photos in the right direction. Now, I've made Lightroom videos in the past talking about this profile and how I use it in my workflow, but it's since been removed. It's not on Kyle's website anymore, and neither is the presets that he used to use in the past. That said, where I do feel like I could take some artistic liberty and turn this into a lesson is to show you how to decode Lightroom profiles. Now, this isn't one-to-one. You'll still have to do some eye spot checking. However, I do think it is highly representative of what the final outcome is. So we're gonna jump into Lightroom in a second here, and we're gonna unpack all of that and walk through a step-by-step how I've decoded this profile here. But if you have these profiles and there's ones that you're using on an everyday basis, I think there is a little bit of a balance. And it's okay to use the tools that other people have provided, as long as you're doing so in your own way, which I wholeheartedly feel as though I am doing. Okay, so with that said, let's jump in. All right, so now that we're on the computer, we can quickly walk through the process at hand. So what you're gonna wanna do is take the profiles and the presets that you've been using. So without further ado, what we're gonna wanna do is just take these files and open them with Notepad. So you take the preset and you take the profile, and you'll get two large files here. So on the left-hand side, I have the preset, which you'll notice gives me all of the preset information. Same with the profile. In the preset, we have the saturation, hue, all of the HSL details, again, in detail. That said, we're not gonna use that. We're gonna use the profile. For my workflow, the profile is what I'm looking to recreate. So the KM Fuji Raw neutral profile, I love it. I use it literally every time I edit. So what we can then do is go ahead and start to kind of trim this file down and get all the usable information out of it. The first few rows of information aren't really helpful to me. The trues and falses don't really help me all that much either. So we can just get to a point where we get to incremental temperature, and we're gonna go to right about there. So we have temp and tint, hue adjustments, saturation adjustments, luminance, HSL right here, and clarity. We'll actually space here, so convert to grayscale is false. And then the profile, which is really helpful, is Adobe Standard, because that is different than the actual stock profile that mine would be on. So once we go through, we can then see what this is. So this is actually our lookup table. So this is our LUT, or in this case, our preset. So all of this information is on the other file. So what we could then do is recreate the profile and recreate the preset, just so we have all of the information that we need fully present. But I'm not really interested in recreating the preset, so I'm just going to get rid of all of that here. So now we get to a state like this, where we have the next batch of info, if you will, which is our tone curve. So we have the dynamic curve, then we have the red, green, and blue, and there we go. And so there's all of our information. So if we actually wanted to start to use this, we could pull up Lightroom side by side and then recreate the profile given the recipe, if you will, that we have on our left-hand side. So if I were to look at this and turn on the neutral profile, I can see immediately what this does for the image. So it softens it a little bit, and it also makes it a little bit warmer, but it gives me that baseline palette that I would want to use for all my photo editing. So it's perfect. That's why I use it. It establishes a core foundation that I can use to actually make the image look like I want it to look. Now, again, if you're looking to recreate these, or if you want to know what all changes are taking place, or even if you want to use this as a learning activity so you can figure out what profiles you like and why you like them based off the changes that exist in the image. So that said, if we wanted to go ahead and recreate this final look, I'll take this image, which was taken right next to the other image, so the clouds change a little bit, but for the most part, the conditions are extremely similar. We can start to go through and change these. We'll change the profile to Adobe Standard because we know that that's there for us. we'll change the incremental temperature to +11. So in this case, we're going to go to 4961 and add 11 to this. And then we will bring the tint down. So it's +12. So we're just going to, or +15. So since it's -3, we're just going to go to 12. So since it is incremental, we're just adding it to the values that were at our baseline. But these are some of the things that I think that will have to get changed throughout the image. So next one, we have hue and saturation. So we have orange -13 and blue -12. So we can jump in and do those real quick. -12, which is going to give us more of a teal and more of a reddish orange. And then the saturation here. So we'll just do these real quick. Okay, so those have all been put in. Luminance is aqua and blue -1. So making those a little bit less bright. So we can start to see where we're going with this. It's subtle, but the colors are a bit softer. The blues are much more pleasant blue in my opinion. Oh, that's it, right? It's kind of what we're working towards. So exposure, so now we could go back up here. So the exposure, we're actually going to do +0.4. So that's going to give us a little bit of a brighter image. The highlights, we want -3. Shadows, we're going to soften with a 22 here. And then clarity, we're going to go +9. So there we go. Now this is getting more into familiar territory, but it still just looks a little flat, right? But that's all of like the baseline color edits that establishes this profile as itself. But the information that we have next is the curves. So these ones, again, relatively easy to replicate because we have the numerical information on the left-hand side. So all I have to do is create a node, and then right down here is where I'm just going to change its coordinate location on the graph. So 22 and 16, and I'll just go through and do these really quickly. Cool. So it really gives us a lot more just like pop to the image itself, right? It's a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more contrasty, just has a little bit more oomph to the shadows. And then the other two, if I look over here, I can see the only one that has a really small adjustment is the green curve. So I'm just going to go through and quickly make this one 0 and 2. I don't even know if that's going to do all that much, and that's it. Now, if we compare the two images side by side, they're extremely close. Now, the one thing I couldn't really account for when doing this is the warmth, the true white balancing of the image. So what I would then do is actually just kind of bump this up like a little bit, maybe closer to like there. Yeah, this one's, the original is still like a teeny bit warmer, but not by much. I don't know, maybe there, maybe that's too warm. Yeah, so there's slight variations that are like a little bit different, but we're like almost perfect. We have all of the information here, one-to-one. If I click back and forth between these images, especially in the sky, the blues aren't changing at all. The only thing I don't have fully locked in is the white balance. But we're extremely close to having these images be fully representative of one another. Like these are very, very subtly different. And if I needed to do anything, I could just boost the saturation on the greens in particular, and then I would be fully locked in. But just to show you kind of the one-to-one comparison, if we were to take another image here, what I'm going to do is actually just keep all this information that we have on this image, and I'll just scroll to like an old one. For instance, this one already has the preset on it. So this just has the preset on it. If I were to reset this, go to how this looked out of camera, and then put all the edits that I just made, this is the same exact image that we were just looking at, except now with all the information that we hard coded in instead of the preset itself. So just to show you that all this information is there, and it always has been. And if you're ever looking to decode a preset or a profile, this is how you do it. So we can close this one out, but I hope this has been helpful. So, okay. So now that we've seen how you can quickly unpack a profile and replicate all of the changes with the sliders manually, hopefully this will make you feel a little bit more empowered to own the profiles that you're using. Like everything that's out there, these things are tools to help you automate and streamline your workflows. So now that we can see what's going on within the profile, we've taken a peek under the hood, we've seen what actual changes are taking place, now we can own them. We can go in and tweak them a little bit more, tweak them a little bit less, but now we as the artist have full ownership over the entire workflow. Again, I wanted to make this video for the folks like me who have been using a profile for a little bit and wanted to know what actually was happening within it. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. And as always, if you liked it, like it, subscribe if you wanna, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.